Some levels of evil are so great that words almost fail to do them justice. There are some insane behaviors for which courts are merely unprepared. At this point, Jeffrey Dahmer had to face the consequences and received a life sentence. How did he react to the court order? What evil deeds did Dahmer commit to end up here? Buckle up to witness his life sentence's devastating effect on some of the world's most deadly murderers, among other things.
A gruesome story leads off our newscast.
Milwaukee police found body parts in a North Side apartment, and now they wonder if they've uncovered some kind of death factory.
Police removed boxes and boxes of body parts, evidence of what appears to be a psychopathic mass murder.
Now authorities believe the suspect, 31-year-old Jeffrey Dahmer, may be responsible for as many as 17 murders.
With the help of the brand new Netflix series Dharma Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, his deeds still confound and astound people 30 years later. His answer to the prospect of spending the rest of his life in prison was this. One could argue that the Wisconsin legal system was not designed to handle such levels of evil. Dahmer felt a lot of relief throughout his court-ordered sentence.
Your Honor, it is over now. This has never been a case of trying to get free. I didn't ever want freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself.
He was sentenced to life in prison because Wisconsin does not have a death penalty.
This was a case to tell the world that I did what I did not for reasons of hate. I hated no one. I knew I was sick or evil or both. Now I believe I was sick. The doctors have told me about my sickness, and now I have some peace.
In addition to having schizotypal personality disorder, he was also found to have paraphilia, a substance use disorder. He hoped that by making his condition well known, he could deter other people with similar tendencies from acting on their sinister urges.
Maybe there was a way for us to tell the world that if there are people out there with these disorders, maybe they can get some help before they end up being hurt or hurting someone. I think the trial did that.
The court decided that Dahmer was sane at the time of his murders, notwithstanding his claim of insanity. In order to establish Dahmer's sanity, forensic psychiatrist Dr. Park Dietz concentrated on one particular factor, alcohol.
But another reason he would drink is that when he was alone with those whom he meant to harm, he would have inhibitions against the killing that he would need to drink to overcome.
Dahmer had to consume large amounts of alcohol in order to carry out his twisted dreams. He was unable to perform these deeds while sober. It implies that he was aware of his actions and knew they were improper. Now that he was in court, he had to finally admit to these wrongdoings.
I know how much harm I have caused. I tried to do the best I could after the arrest to make amends, but no matter what I did, I could not undo the terrible harm I have caused.
The fact that Dahmer expressed some regret for his acts is the only solace left for the victims at this point. Now that his heinous deeds have made national news, Dahmer starts talking about money. Dahmer therefore intended for his horrific deeds to generate some profit.
If there is ever any money, I want it to go to the victims' families.
And it turned out that this was a peculiar way to make up for it.
Today, it's the sale of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer's deadly possessions that has some people scrambling and others screaming. Up for bids, a hatchet, saws, the refrigerator where Jeffrey Dahmer kept body parts, and other macabre memorabilia.
Dahmer wants to apologize to a number of people in addition to the families of the victims.
The judge in my earlier case tried to help me, and I refused his help, and he got hurt by what I did.
In 1989, he was also detained in connection with the sexual assault of Samzak Sintha, a young man. The Times reported that in 1989, after persuading Samzak, then 13 years old, to follow him to his flat to participate in a nude picture shoot in exchange for money, Dahmer was found guilty of sexually assaulting the kid. Although Dahmer sent a letter of apology to the judge still planned to sentence Dahmer to 8 years in jail. After serving 10 months, he was granted probationary release. Dahmer later expressed regret to the police officers he duped after admitting that the judgment actually resulted in the loss of lives.
I hurt those policemen in the Conorak matter, and I shall ever regret causing them to lose their jobs.
When Dahmer was on probation, he started inviting young guys back into his flat. An Asian youngster who was wandering the streets naked and injured was reported to the police. They gave him back to Dahmer because they believed that he was her boyfriend, even though he was inebriated. Later that night, Dahmer murdered him.
It is contained in the front page of the Milwaukee Journal this afternoon, the headline reading, "Police were in the Dahmer apartment." This was May 27th, nearly 2 months before the first bodies were found there.
Conorak Syntha Symphony was the name of the youngster, who was the brother of the victim who had put Dahmer on probation earlier. Sadly, Dahmer never showed any emotion throughout any of his previous court appearances. His reaction to the question was cold. This happened in July 1991, not long after his arrest. He displayed a classic poker face with no sign of emotion.
Mr. Dahmer, you're charged with 4 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. If convicted of each of those counts, you face a term of life imprisonment. You're also charged with habitual criminality. That would add an additional 10-year penalty to each count upon conviction. Do you understand that?
When further victims were discovered and charges were brought against him a few months later, he still had the same expressionless face. The victims' voices baffled the media. Yet it wasn't until the final trial that the family of the victims was given the opportunity to speak to Dahmer face-to-face about their feelings.
Stricken families of the 15 men and boys Dahmer killed and mutilated held their peace. But today, before the sentencing, they had their day in court.
Did you ever stop to think that this is someone's brother, nephew, uncle, cousin, grandson, or just someone's friend?
I hope you can deal with what you've done. I'm trying hard to. You almost destroyed me, but I refuse to let you destroy me. I will carry on.
You destroyed the baby of the family, and I hope you go to hell.
Most of them kept their calm, but not all.
Only the sister of Errol Lindsay was unable to control her fury. However, the majority of them managed to remain cool.
I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again.
The judge delivered the lengthy sentence to Dahmers.
The court will impose a mandatory life sentence plus an additional 10 years on the habitual criminality. Count 2, life imprisonment plus 10 years consecutive to count 1.
The judge could not help but comment on how horrible the case had been for him too, even though Dahmer had been given a sentence of 957 years in prison and would be released in the year 2949.
Nobody gets to ask the judge how you feel about horror movies, because I'll tell you what I do, I turn them off. That's one of the powers that you have when you control the television set.
Then he stated something quite deep, stating that there was no way to undo this terrible disaster. All that was done was done.
A number of you have heard me use the expression before, I wish I had that magic button that I could put things back in place. But I don't have the power to bring people back to life. You know, that's in the hands of somebody else.
We are aware that Jeffrey Dahmer was only in prison for 2 years before someone decided to give him a taste of his own medicine, and that he did not complete his term.
In Wisconsin today, Jeffrey Dahmer died. He was murdered in the prison where he was sent in 1991 for murdering 17 men and boys.
The families of the victims had conflicting feelings about Dahmer's murder.
I am happy and very excited that the monster is finally dead.
It's worse now because he's not suffering like we are.
There was never going to be a nice ending to this tale. Instead, it was a brutally violent exit from this world for one of the world's most ruthless and heartless killers. What do you think about Dahmer's reaction? Do you think he deserved this early death? Please share your thoughts on this in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. While you're there, please turn on the notification bell to ensure you receive all our upcoming uploads. I hope you had a great time watching the video. We'll meet at the next one.